Welcome to LIVEDAF, your online Daf Yomi Shiur.
Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to today's Daf Yomi, which is Shabbos Daf Kuf Nun Gimel. We are right on the top line. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Yehuda Brei, the Rav Shmuel Bashilas, Mishmei the Rav. So he said this in the name of Rav. If you want to really know what is the spiritual standing of a person, take a look at what happens when he passes away during the funeral, during the hesped, the eulogy, which is conducted upon his passing. May espedei shel adam, from the hesped, eulogy of a person. Nikar, it is clearly discernible. It is indicative, im ben ha'olam habahu im lav, whether or not this person merits the title of a ben olam haba, a dweller of olam haba. Now we all have a chelik olam haba. Apparently this is speaking about a higher standing, a higher status, a higher spiritual madrega in olam haba. So that is discernible during the hesped, the funeral. Let's take a look at Rashi. Top line in Rashi, im ben olam habahu shim kasher haya. Because if this man who departed was a righteous man, hakol boichen alav, all cry for him. Omer the demois, they shed tears of misaprim shvachai. They discuss his praise. There's no more jealousy, no more competition at that point. People tend to be more straightforward and honest. And according to what's going on during the hesped, it is truly discernible whether or not this person is of a higher spiritual status, and they all feel his absence and his void. Continues the Gemara. Eili, is that the case, that the person's hesped, his eulogy and funeral, are true indications, a true yardstick to measure his status? V'amar le Rav, because Rav himself, didn't he say to Rav Shmuel Bashilas? So Rav was the one who taught us this lesson, and he himself needed to instruct Rav Shmuel Bashilas, and he said, Achem behespeda, go ahead and move people, move them to tears, stir them, deliver a stirring eulogy at my levaya, at my funeral, dehasam ke'imna, because I am present there. I'm going to be there, and I'm going to be aware of what's going on. Make sure that you move them and you stir them. So Rav was certainly a righteous person, Adam Tzaddik. She calls him a Gavra Rabbah. So why was it necessary to artificially stir the audience and move them to tears? If he was a truly great person, says the Gemara, of course, you need somebody to instigate it. Like Hasha, it's not difficult. When we have a person who is a Adam Kasher, Adam Chashav, then the Macham Achem. When people are stirred and moved, they respond in kind. But certainly you need somebody to move them, to deliver that properly stirring eulogy. However, a person where he's not of such a high spiritual standing, then nothing helps. The Macham. So the people are standing by the Levaya, and there's somebody there who is attempting to deliver some moving eulogy, but they don't really get affected, don't get moved to tears, don't get emotionally involved, since this person isn't really of such a high ruchnius madreg. Amalei abai l'Rabba, kegoyin mar. So you, Rabba, we're going to have a problem. Kegoyin mar the sonulei kulu pumpadisoi. All of the people, the residents of Pumpadisa, where Rabba lived, they hate him. Disliked Rabba. Rashi says they were people who were dishonest, and Rabba would rebuke them, admonish them, give them techacha. So they disliked Rabba. So Abai told Rabba, you're going to have a problem. Man achem hesped, who's going to warm people up and move them at the hesped? Amar lei, so Rabba responded, not so terrible. Mistaya at, it's sufficient if you, Rabba Barav Chanan, you and Rabba Barav Chanan will go ahead and conduct your eulogy, your hesped, and that's enough. I don't need more than that. Boy minei Rabbi Lezer mirav. Rabbi Lezer asks of Rav, Ezu ben Olam haba, who is indeed worthy of this title of a ben Olam haba? Amalei, he told him, quoting a pasuk in Yeshaya, Vaznecha tishmana davar macharecha. You will hear a word from behind you, Leimar, Zeh haderech l'chubai, ki sa'aminu v'chi milu. So what it means to say is, after, behind your coffin, behind your mita, after you're passing, you want to hear people speak and say, well, this is the way that this man trotted and traveled, this is the one. And this is the way that you should also follow. We should follow. We shouldn't veer nor right nor left. So apparently, this person is a truly righteous person and a ben olam haba if this is how they're speaking about him and about his lifestyle after his passing. Rab Chanina Amar, who is a ben olam haba, kol shadas Rabbi Seino or Rabbi Sav noichei menu, a person whose teachers, the das, the mind of his teachers are pleased with him, what they hear and see about him. So this person is truly a ben olam haba. The pasuk in Kehelah says, "V'savavu b'shuk hasoiftim." So the eulogizers will make their rounds throughout the streets. Says the Gemara, "B'nei Galila Amri," the residents of Galil in Eretz Yisrael would say as follows: "Asei dvarim lifnei mitascha." Make sure in your lifetime to do things which people will be able to relate and say over in front of your coffin. B'nei Yehuda Amri, the residents of Yehuda, a different portion of Israel, would say it a little differently. Asei dvarim la'acha mitascha. Do things in your lifetime, conduct yourself in a lifestyle in a way which would allow people to speak about it behind your meat. B'lei pligi, there's no dispute here. They're simply reflecting different customs. Marki Asrei, one is speaking about the custom in his locale where they used to speak in front of the Mita. Umarki Asrei, and the Bnei Yehuda had a different minhag, and they are reflecting their custom where they used to speak and praise the departed behind the Mita. They're both speaking about the same concept. Do things for which you'll be proud of after your passing. Tanan Hassam, we learned there in a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Reb Lezer Omer, repent, do tshuva one day prior to your ptira, to your leaving this world. Shalu Talmidiv Reb Lezer. So they asked Reb Lezer, how's that possible? How does the person know when that day is? Does the person really know which is the day he's going to leave this world? The Gemara tells us elsewhere that the Yom HaMisa, I believe it's the Gemara in Pesachim, the Yom HaMisa is something which nobody's aware of. It's hidden. So how does a person know which day is appropriate for tshuva? Amar Lamsa responded, the Kolshkein. Certainly, it's actually better that a person doesn't know. And therefore, Yoshev Hayayim, certainly because he doesn't know, let him do tshuva today. Shema Yamas Lamacha, perhaps he'll die tomorrow. V'nimtza, as a result of this uncertainty and of this practice, v'nimtza kol yamav tshuva, and turns out that all his days will be filled with tshuva and preparation of his departure from this world. V'av shleimai, ama b'chachmasai, likewise Shleima, expressed in his wisdom, b'chol eis, at all times, yub godecha levanim, your clothes, your garments should be white, referring to the neshama, as we discussed yesterday. The neshama is nimshal, compared to garments which are given by the king, by Hashem, to take care of them, to guard them, keep them clean. So keep your clothes clean at all times. V'sheman al roshcha al yechsar, and oil on your head should not be lacking, referring to mitzvahs. So a person constantly has to adopt this attitude. Doesn't know when the time in this world, when his stint in this world will expire. Therefore, maintain yourself in proper shape at all times. Mashal, this is analogous to a king. Mashal l'melech shazimin es avad le'vasuda. He invited his avadim to the banquet, v'lo yikav lehem zman, and he didn't prescribe a specific time. Didn't tell them when the program is going to commence. Now, they don't know when to expect to be called into the banquet hall. Pikchen shebehem. So what happened? The pikchen, the wise one, the smart ones amongst them, kishtos atzman, they got dressed up properly, they beautified themselves in preparation for the banquet. V'yashva Pesach Beis HaMelech, and they awaited the commencement of the program. They sat on the Pesach, at the doorway of the palace. Amr, they said, look, klum chasel Beis HaMelech. Is the king lacking anything in there? He can decide to begin his suit at any given moment. Let's be prepared for it. Tibshin shebehem. However, the foolish ones amongst them, they said, well, we have plenty of time. They got occupied with their own business. They want to do their work. Amr, they said, klum yesuda b'lei torach. Do you ever find a suda without preparation, without exertion? They need to prepare. Surely you have plenty of time to come back and join the meal. What happened? Suddenly, without prior notice, the king summoned his servants. Time to begin the program. The pikchen amongst them entered fully dressed, beautified, clean, ready for the meal. Va'atipshim, however, the foolish ones, nichnasu lefanav, they came unprepared, and they entered the geshem l'chlochen, soiled and dirty. And what happened? Samach hamelech l'kras pikchim. The king expressed his happiness and joy for the pikchim who came prepared, v'kas l'kras tipshim, and expressed his anger and annoyance towards the foolish ones. Amar, he said, what is the result? Halolu shekishtos atzma suda. The wise ones who beautify themselves, prepare themselves properly for the suda, yeshvu v'yochel v'yishtu. They'll sit and eat and drink. Halolu, the other ones, shaloi kishtu atzma suda, who did not prepare themselves properly for the suda, yamdu v'yiru. They will merely stand by and watch and not partake in the suda. So this is compared to the person in this world, one who's prepared at all times for the summoning of Hashem back to Gan Eden, back to Shemayim. He'll merit to experience the joy and beauty of Gan Eden, as opposed to those foolish people who squander their lifetime away with foolishness and distractions, thinking, well, we have plenty of time to prepare ourselves for that journey upwards. They never know when that moment will come, and when it comes and they're unprepared, they're going to have to stand by. They won't be able to experience the joy and ecstasy of Gan Eden. Continues the Gemara, Chasnei Rab Meir, Mishum Rab Meir Amar. So the son-in-law of Rab Meir quoted Rab Meir as follows: Af hein nirin k'mishamshin. We said that the tipshim will stand on the side and watch and not take part. He held that wasn't sufficient punishment because af hein nirin k'mishamshin, they're viewed as servants. They look like they're merely there to serve, to wait on the meal. And it's not really a shame and embarrassment. It's not enough of a punishment. Ella, rather, what happens is as follows. Elu ve'elu yoshvin, both classes of people will sit down. The difference will be, halolu oichlin, halolu re'evin. These will take part, will eat, and those will remain hungry. Halolu shoisin, halolu tzmeim, these will drink, and these will remain thirsty. Shenamar, koyamar Hashem. Hashem said as follows, Hine avoda yoichlu, my servants will eat, avoda yochelu va'atem tiravu, and you will be hungry. Hine avoda yishtu, my servants will drink, va'atem titzmo, and you will be thirsty. Hine avodai yoroinu mituv leiv, my servants will sing mituv leiv from the goodness of their heart, va'atem tzitzaku, and you will cry out mike'ev leiv, from the hurt of your heart. So the Maharal explains, it seems that the first version of the Gemara assumed that the einish of Gehenna will be simply absence, the void. They're going to feel the void of the ecstasy, of the hana, of that positive experience that they can't take a part in. That in itself is a punishment, a sufficient punishment. Whereas the quote from a mayor holds that no, that's not sufficient punishment, merely absence. That's not really Gehenna. Gehenna means actually partaking in a negative experience, suffering somewhat. Only in that manner does the experience of Gehenna cleanse the person, cleanses the neshama, and avails him for the ultimate hana, which everybody has a chelik haba, which they'll experience thereafter. Continues the Gemara. Davar acher, another pshat in the pasuk b'chol eis. Yubgadech levanim, at all times your clothes should be white. This is referring to the tzitzis, elo tzitzis, which are white. V'shemen al roishcha, al yechsar, the oil on your head should not be lacking. Elo tefillin, referring to the tefillin, Rashi says, because tefillin has the shame of Hashem embedded in it. Rashi brings the Gemara that the tefillin placed on one's head express the fact that Hashem rests on us, because it has the shin there, which is visible. So v'shemen, v'shem, that's the shame of Hashem sitting on your head, referring to the tefillin. Maharal points out that specifically these two mitzvahs, tzitzis and tefillin, encompass the whole person in all his aspects and elements, because the tefillin shorosh sitting on a person's head, that reflects a person's intellectual commitment and connection to Hashem. In the head and the brain is a person's mind, a person's neshama. The tzitzis wrap the person's body, so it represents the person's element of body, which is also connected to Hashem. So both these elements, body and soul, intellect, mind, and guf, are meant to be constantly connected and cleaving to Hashem throughout one's life. Hadron Allah Shoyel. Says the Mishnah, Misha Hichshich Loi Bederich. So a person is traveling, and Shabbos is about to come. It's about to get dark, and he has his wallet with his money. Chacham were concerned about a person losing his property, as the Gemara will explain, and therefore they gave him an option. You can hand your pouch or your other valuables to a Nachri, a non-Jew, and have him carry it for you. So do this right before Shabbos, and have him carry it for you on Shabbos. If you made him a Nachri, if there's no guy available, manich al chamor, you can place it on his donkey. Once he reaches the safety of the city, right when he gets to the first courtyard, he wants to remove whatever is sitting on his donkey, so he removes the kelim which are non-muktzah, which you can move on Shabbos. Those kelim which are ein on Shabbos, which are not movable on Shabbos, they are muktzah. You can't directly interact with them. Rather, matar chavalim, he loosens the ropes which are keeping them on the donkey, and the sacks slip down on their own. Says the Gemara, my timer, sharle rabbanan l'meisav kisi l'nachri. What is the reason why Chacham allowed one to hand over his property to the guy to carry it for him? We know generally one may not instruct a non-Jew to do a malacha for you on Shabbos. So why is this different? Says the Merkimu Rabban. The Rabban were well aware that a person doesn't have the ability to withstand, to face loss of his property. If you don't allow him to hand it to the guy, he may be tempted to go carry that item with him for Amis Yisrael and do a malachim in that Torah. Therefore, Chacham negated and suspended their Isser of Amira La'akum and allowed him to pass it on to a guy. Amarov, Davka Kisei. This applies merely to one's own personal property, for which he toiled, expended tircha. So he's very emotionally connected to his property, and he may be tempted to actually carry it with him if he doesn't have another option. Therefore, the Chacham allowed him to give it to the guy. But regarding something which he merely found, in which case he didn't spend much effort on it, he's not so emotionally connected to it, and therefore there's no concern there that he might go do a malacha if we don't give him another viable option. Therefore, he could not give it to the guy. Says more pshita. Isn't this obvious? Kisei not. The Mishnah specifically cites an example of kisei, which indicates his personal property for which he worked and toiled for. Perhaps I would think, who adin? The same din would apply afilu mitzvah, even to something which he found. Why did the Mishnah mention kisei? Urcha de milsak tani. Mishnah simply shows something which is common. But certainly this halach would apply even to an object which he found off the street. Kamash Malan, therefore Rava teaches us that is not the case. The Chacham only allowed in a specific case where a person feels emotionally connected to it, and therefore they provided that allowance. Continues the Gemara. V'lo yamar. Now this exception, that's something which one finds, he's not emotionally connected to it, there's no concern, that's only ela deloy asil yadi. If that object had not yet entered his hands, he had not yet acquired it, he didn't do a kinyan for it, therefore it's not really his yet. In which case, he won't feel so much the loss of the item. He can face the loss of that object without getting too emotionally involved. There's no concern and there's no heter. But if that object has already entered his hand, meaning he already did a kinyan, he acquired it, kikise dami, it's considered like his pouch, like any other of his objects, and therefore we allow him to give it to a guy. There's another version. Rava was uncertain. He asked, an object which one finds and already came into his property, meaning came into his possession, he already was kainit. What will be the halacha there? Given the asal yadi, since it came into his possession, it is equated to his pouch and his concern, and due to his emotional attachment to it, he might be tempted to do a malacha if we don't allow him to pass it on to a non-Jew. Or Yidilmo, perhaps, given the loy torach, but since ultimately he didn't really work for this thing, he merely found it off the street, so perhaps he's not so concerned about the loss of this item, lav kikise dami, and we don't equate it to his pouch, take it, we leave it unresolved. Let's take a look at Rashi inside. Rashi here is 4 lines from the bottom. My timer sharli lemesil lenachri. Why did the Chacham allow him to hand his money to the guy? The guy is becoming his emissary, his shliach. One cannot use a guy to do a malach. They want to answer because the Chacham knew, were well aware of human nature. A person will be very difficult for somebody to face loss of his property. Eino de mamed atzmai b'lahatzma money, he won't be able to withstand from doing something to save his money. And the Rava tells us this is specifically when it's something which he earned. Dafka kisay, the kivan the torach, since he toiled for it, shari torach uba, since through work. So he's concerned about losing it, since he toiled and worked for it. If you don't allow him, if you don't allow him to give it to the guy, he may come to carry it. This is only said that Metzia is excluded from this allowance, only if this thing didn't enter his possession, didn't enter his domain, if he wasn't kainit. He didn't pick it up, he hadn't yet acquired it. Because otherwise, it's considered to be like one of his other possessions, and we allow him to give it to the guy. That's the first version of Rava. The second version of Rava concludes that we're uncertain about this, whether or not we're going to equate the Metzia, which he already was kaina, to the other possessions, or perhaps there's a difference since he didn't really exert much effort in acquiring it, so perhaps the heter will not apply and we leave it unresolved. Continues the Gemara, Eina mei nachri. Mishnah told us, if there's no nachri available, place it on your donkey. Taima de eina mei nachri. This is only because there's no Gentile available. But if there's a nachri with him, certainly that's the most preferred option of nachri yavli. My time, why? Why do we prefer giving to the nachri over placing it on his chamor? Says the Gemara, my time, chamor ata mitzuva shesase. One is mitzuva is commanded to prevent his animal from doing malach on Shabbos. Nachri, however, ata mitzuva shesase. By a nachri, there's no tzivui to have the nachri rest for you. So menat Torah, a guy could do a malacha for a yid. It's merely an isser midrabanan. The Rabbanan suspended their isser in this case for concern that it might lead him to do a worse offense, do isser deraisa of carrying it. So this is specifically to giving it to a guy as opposed to putting on a chamar, in which case, sometimes when a chamar carries something for a person, it involves an issa deraisa. Now actually in our case, it won't involve issa minator. The Gemara later will describe exactly how he will place it on his chamar to circumvent the issa deraisa, but theoretically, a chamar is meant to rest on Shabbos, and if he's not careful to do it do properly, the chamor will end up doing issa deraisa for him. So we try to avoid that. That's only the second option. Preferably, you should give it to the nachri. Continues the Gemara. Chamor v'cheresh shoyte v'katan. Now the Gemara knew that although the Mishnah merely cites two options, a nachri or a chamor, the Gemara knew that there are other options as well. A cheresh, a person who's deaf and mute, who is considered to be a lav bardas, a person that doesn't have true understanding, and he's pater from mitzvahs, the Gemara will discuss it. A shaita, a person who's deranged, the katan, a minor. So the Gemara knew that these are also options to hand it to any of these people who are not considered to be bar mitzvah, they're not obligated to keep the laws of Shabbos. So this is also an option. Now, if one is faced with a choice, he has a donkey, and he also has a cherish, or a shaita, or katan accompanying him. Which one is better? Should he put it on the donkey, or should he hand it to one of these individuals? Says the Gemara again, chamor, if he's faced with the choice of the donkey and the cherish, shaita v'katan, which one is preferred? Says the Gemara, chamor manach lei, put it on the chamor, l'cherish, shaita v'katan lo yayiv lei. He shouldn't give it to these individuals. He should rather place it on the donkey. Why? My time, why? Hani adam. These are considered to be adam, part of the human race, human species. Rashi says that although these people are not chayiv mitzvahs, because he's a cherish, a shaita, or katan, but in his kind, meaning other people like them, are chayiv mitzvahs. And asilach lufi, Rashi says, one might confuse matters. Well, if you give it to this person, next time I give it to a person who's chayiv mitzvahs, a regular adult. Therefore, avoid these people. Put it on the chamor, who's not a person. Hani adam, hi, this donkey, lav adam, is not a person. So that's the preferred option. Continues to go on with other options. Cherish v'shoita. If he's faced with a choice, shall I give it to the deaf mute or to the shoita who's deranged? L'shoita, give it to the shoita. Rashi says because he has no das at all, as opposed to a cherish who has dat to klishta. Rashi says some sort of minor form of lucidity of das, and perhaps Rashi means that he can be, again, a person could confuse giving to a cherish to giving to ordinary person. Therefore, better give it to a shaita who nobody will mix up and confuse with a healthy person. So better give it to a shaita than to a cherish. Continues the Gemara. What about if he's faced with an option of shaita v'katan? Which one goes first? L'shaita, for the same reason, because the shaita is considered to be completely devoid of das, of understanding. As Rabbi Chanana points out, that what sets a person higher than an animal? His power to understand, his wisdom, his understanding, his chachma. So a shaita who is bereft and devoid of all that is compared in a way to a behemoth. Therefore, give it to the shaita rather than to the katan. Continues the Gemara, Iboilu. So they ask the following question: what's going to be if we're faced with an equation as follows? Cherish v'kata, mai. He's faced with the choice, giving it to the cherish, deaf mute, or to a katan. Which one takes precedence? Says the Gemara, Aliba de Rabbi Lezer, lo tiboilach. Now, according to Rabbi Lezer, the Gemara soon will bring that he holds that regarding a cherish, it's not really so sure that he's bereft of das, that he's missing das. Perhaps Rabbi Lezer had a suffix, uncertainty whether or not a cherish is considered to be a bar das and one who is chayiv in mitzvahs. So according to Rabbi Lezer, there's no contest here. Certainly, give it to the katan, who we know is not a bar mitzvah. I'll leave it to Rabbi Lezer. According to Rabbi Lezer, there's no question. The Sani, as we learned in the Brayso, Rabbi Yitzchak, Rabbi Lezer. Truma is cherish. What if a cherish performs truma? He separates truma. Let's say it's a chulin. You can't simply treat it as chulin. Because we have an uncertainty whether or not a cherish is considered to be within the category of a bar mitzvah. Whether his das is considered to be a proper understanding, a proper wisdom, proper lucid understanding. Therefore, since there's a suffix there, we can't treat his masa of taking off truma as apostle, as disqualifying. Therefore, we can't treat it as chulin. So according to Rabbi Lezer, certainly when we're faced with a choice, give the pouch to a katan or a cherish. You can't give it to the cherish. Perhaps he's considered to be a full-fledged person, and he's a bar mitzvah, a bar chiyuva. Therefore, you must prefer giving it to the katan, who we know is not a bar mitzvah as of now. Kiti boilach. When will you have your uncertainty? I'll leave it to Rabbanan. According to the Rabbanan, who hold that a cherish is not considered to be one who has proper understanding, proper das, and with regard to mitzvahs, he's like a katan. So you're faced with this equation. We have a cherish who's an adult. Perhaps one can confuse him with an ordinary adult. He's an adult, but he's pater from mitzvahs. On the other side of the scale, you have a katan who's also not a bardas. Halachically, legally, he's not considered to be one who has true understanding. He's not chayiv of mitzvahs. He hasn't yet received his neshama. So he's not really chayiv of mitzvahs. But there's a downside there. Why? Because this fellow, this katan himself, during the course of his upcoming years, he's going to grow into an adult. He himself will turn into an adult who's chayiv of mitzvahs. So he's a bit closer in nature to a proper yid, proper adult, than a cherish is, who's never going to develop into a proper adult, who's chayiv of mitzvahs. On the other hand, the cherish is already an adult, who can be confused with your typical adult. So there's a factor in favor for each one of them. So which one are we meant to choose? Which one is the preferred option to give the kiss to? So again, says the Gemara on the top line, Kiti Boilach Liv de Rabbanan. This question only applies according to the Shittas Rabbanan, who maintain that a cherish is considered to be a larv bardas, devoid of true understanding, and is pater from mitzvahs. The Snan, as learned in the Mishnah, Chamishli, Yitrayim, there are 5 individuals who should not perform truma, v'im tarmu, if they proceeded to do that, ain't trumas and truma. That truma is considered to be invalid. Elu hein, who are they? Cherish, deaf mute, shoite, deranged, v'katan. If one goes ahead and removes truma from produce that doesn't belong to him, he has no rishus to do it. If a non-Jew proceeds to do truma on the produce of a Yisrael, even with full authority, ain't truma or truma, his truma is invalid, Rashi says, because shlichus to a guy is non-existent. He can't become an emissary of a yid. So in any case, we see that the cherish who does truma, that truma is considered to be null and void. because he's not a bar mitzvah. So getting back to our question, so what would be the halacha? We're choiced with cherish or katan. The cherish yavle, should he give it to a cherish? Why? The katan asil chaldas, as opposed to giving it to a katan who eventually is going to become a bar das. He's going to acquire wisdom and understanding when he grows older. So perhaps one will confuse the katan with an ordinary adult, or perhaps another reason would be that this katan himself will grow accustomed to doing these things, and even when he becomes bar mitzvah, he'll continue to do it. So there's a reason to avoid giving it to the katan. Or perhaps the katan yavle, prefer giving it to the katan. The cherish aslach lufi begadol bikeach, because the cherish might be confused. One might mix it up with a gadol bikeach, with an ordinary adult who has understanding. So there's a reason to prefer the katan, since he's merely a minor. Nobody will confuse him with a gadol bikeach. There's a reason to prefer the cherish, because he himself will never develop into a bardas. So which way do we go? So then we have machlekes. Ika de amri, some say lecherish yavle, give it to the cherish. Ika de amri, some say lekatan yavle, give it to the katan, since right now he's a katan and is very dissimilar to your ordinary adult. Continues the Gemara. So we had the nachri, we had the option of putting on the donkey, the cherish, the shaita, the katan. What if none of the above are applicable? Ein sham loy nachri, v'loy chamar, v'loy cherish, v'loy shaita, v'loy katan mai. None of the above are available. No goy, no donkey, no cherish, no shaita, v'katan. What is this person supposed to do? Rabbi Yitzchak, there's actually another option available. Oy da cheres haisa, there was another option. V'loy rotzu chacham galois, chacham did not want to reveal it. Meaning, this option that we're going to see soon is only allowed when there's absolutely no other alternative. Only then do the chacham allow it. But if there's a goy available, you're meant to give it to the nachri, as opposed to resorting to this option. What is this option? My oida cheres hoisa. What was this other option that the chachamim concealed, didn't want to reveal it? Moilichoi pachos medalad amas. Person carries the item in increments, less than 4 amas at a time, in which case there's no issa medalad Torah. If he's carrying less than 4 amas, it's only less than Rabbanon, and this is only allowed when there's no other option available. Says the Gemara, why not? Why didn't the Chacham publicize it? Why couldn't this be done l'chatchila? It is the honor of Hashem to hide something. The honor of human kings is investigate, don't hide anything. As opposed to Hashem, we're meant to hide things to protect the honor of Hashem. Explains the Gemara. Why is concealing this halacha from the public considered to be adding honor to Hashem? How is it safeguarding Hashem and the Torah? Because if a person will know about the solution, perhaps this will lead him to actually carry it for Amos Sarabim. So it's not something which is preferred. It's kavod elikim to protect the honor of Hashem's Torah. Protect it, conceal it, don't publicize it. It's only a last resort option when there's nothing else available. Continues the Gemara. Tanya Rableza Eimer. Boy b'yoim, on that day, Rashi will tell us this was the day that the Chachamim went up to the upper floor of Chananya ben Chizkiah, as we learned way back on Daf Zayin, and they made many gzeris to protect the Torah, safeguard Truma, etc. And on that day, they enacted this gzera as well, which is, don't resort to incremental carrying, less than 4 amas at a time, unless there's no other option available, unless there's no goy available. Otherwise, you can't resort to that option. This was the gzera which was enacted on that day as well. Boy b'yoim, on that day, godeshu sa'ah, they heaped the sa'ah. Sa'ah is this measuring container, which they used to measure, for instance, flour, and they would pile it up, heap it up. So by adding this gzera, this was actually beneficial to the Torah, by safeguarding the Torah and preventing one from doing a malacha. So again, by stating that this option is merely to be employed when a person is left with any other alternative, it actually added to the Torah, it heaped, so to speak, the measure of the Torah. Rabbi Shua disagrees. Rabbi Shua Eimer, it went too far. Boy b'yoim, and that they wiped down. They saw, meaning they shaved off the heaping portion and knocked it down to its fill line. They lost out, meaning sometimes when you pull the rope too much, you end up losing out because, as Rashi will explain, by limiting a person's options, insisting that he give it to the Nachri, not allowing him to carry less than 4 amas, perhaps on occasion, he won't trust the guy. He won't want to give it to him. And since you don't give him the other option, he's going to resort to actually carrying it outright in just a rabbin. So it actually resulted in losing out. It was detrimental to the Torah, not beneficial. Tani, we learned in the Brayso mashal. The Rebbe Lezer, this mashal, Rebbe Lezer, who maintained that it was beneficial to the Torah to attach, to enact this gzera lamada or doima. What is it equated to? Lekupa malei kishudim dluim. A person has a basket full of vegetables, cucumbers and gourds. He wants to fill it a bit more. So he takes some small size items, some mustard seeds, and spills it in between those vegetables. This person pours some mustard in addition to all those vegetables, and surely the basket holds everything. It slips right between those vegetables, and it's great. He just added more content to his basket. So according to Rebbe Lezer, adding this restriction was actually beneficial to the Torah. Mashal, the Rabbi Yeshua, the Mashal Rabbi Yeshua, who maintained that it was actually detrimental to the Torah. What is this equated to? La reva malei dvash, to this bowl full of honey. A person seeks to fill it even more. He places pomegranates and nuts in there. What happens? Overfill causes it to overflow. It spits out its content, it's honey. So you end up losing out. There's no gain achieved whatsoever. Here as well, by adding this additional restriction, it actually brings about and causes a detriment to the Torah. Let's see Rashi inside. 20 lines from the top. Beginning with the words "Boy b'yoyim," on that day, Godishu sa'ah. So this is Rebbe Lezer who holds that it was beneficial. They added, they heaped to the container b'yoyim sha'alu. On that day, they went up l'aliyas Chananya ben Chizkiah. They went up to the aliyah of Chananya ben Chizkiah v'gorzru yudches davar, and they made 18 gzeres. V'zu achas mem hoysa. This was one of them. Kedamrinam perakama noisen kisel anachri. This requirement, this obligation to hand your kiss to the goy, boy b'yoyim gozru, was enacted on that day. Shlo yelechenu. They required him to give it to the guy specifically and not resort to carrying it less than 4 amas at a time. So that day, they added safeguards to the Torah for the heaping measure. Was very good because it added safeguard to the Torah. According to Bishua, it did just the opposite. They measured the flour with a white down measure, meaning they removed the heaping portion. It was actually detrimental. They added too much gzeira. People can't withstand these restrictions. People will actually resort to transgressions. The result is that the measure is wiped off of its heaping portion, meaning you put too much, everything just falls off. It would have been better for them to engage in measuring a heaping portion, not to overload and to actually knock down the measure. Getting back to Rebbe Lezer, who maintains it was actually good, so he poured the mustard seeds in this basket, because the mustard seeds fall between the vegetables. Afkan here as well, Yofet Tiknu was good. What they did was something enduring and lasting. As opposed to Rabbi Yeshua maintains that overloading the honey there causes it to flow out the mekiyas advash, it spits out the excess honey, shahya barishan, which was there originally. So you end up adding but losing the initial. Af elu, likewise here, are they zerasim through their gzera gormu laver. They cause people to be over the shema lo yamas anoch. Perhaps a person won't trust the guy to give him his money. V'em lo yitiru lo lichoy pachis me'arba. And nevertheless, they didn't allow him, in the case when he has the goy option, to carry it less than 4 amas. We know that person can't withstand facing the loss of his property. So if you won't give it to the Nachri, what's he going to do? He's going to carry it 4 amas. Says the Gemara, Omar Mar. So when he doesn't have the Nachri option, he places it on his donkey. Says the Gemara, how's that allowed? He's doing a Isser, a Malacha. He's leading his donkey with his load on it, which is a Malach, which is Isser Minat Torah. We don't allow a person to be over and Issa min HaTorah. This whole discussion regarding the Rabbanan allowing one to do things, that's only in the context of an Issa D'Rabbanan. So they suspended their Issa. You can instruct a guy to do it for you, because we can't compel you to face the loss of your property. But an Issa min HaTorah, that's not allowed. Says the Gemara, V'aloi mechamer, v'rachmana amar. The Torah says, Lo yisasu kol malacha. And the pasuk continues there, Ata, etc., ubem techa. They're referring to leading an animal with a load. So a person cannot do a malacha in conjunction with his animal, which is called a malacha of mechamer. Amar of Ada bar Ava. We found a way for him to circumvent, avoid doing the Issa min HaTorah. Ma'anicha le'gshim alechas. So while the animal is walking, so en route, he places the bag on the animal, in which case there's no malacha. Why? Because there's no akira done. We know that the two main elements of transferring of Haitzah is akira and hanacha, lifting the object off the ground and placing it down on the ground. Now, if there's an item sitting on a person's shoulders, for instance, and he's standing in place, and he begins to walk, that is also considered akira, because the item is considered to be in its rest, resting on the floor, sitting on the person who's standing on the floor. So merely beginning to walk from a stationary state is considered to be akira. But if the animal is already en route, it's already in motion, it's already walking, and then he places it on it while it's walking, there was never an akira, because the object with the animal were never stationary, were never standing in place. So there was no akira done, therefore there's no malacha done. Again, manicha le'akshim alechas. He places it on the animal while it's already walking. Says, okay, that took care of this part. But it's inevitable. The animal is going to stand, going to stop for a moment to tend to its needs, lashtan mayim, to shed water, lataglo, to shed solid waste. So there's going to be a point in time which the animal is going to stop. He's going to stop and make a hanocha, and then he's going to begin walking again and do akira. Says the Gemara, there's a gersa that adds a word here, tana. So we learned in the Brisa. This is the manner in which we're meant to deal with this. When he sees the animal walking, that's when he places it on it, in which case there's no akira. Likewise, when he sees that the animal is about to stop, he quickly removes the pouch. So there was never a lifting or a placing down. So there's no malacha min HaTorah. Therefore it's mut. Says the Gemara, if this is a good option of timing things perfectly to avoid an Isser, why do you need a donkey? I feel chaver nami. Why can he employ this method even with his friend? So he walks alongside his friend. When his friend begins walking, he places the pouch on him. When he sees it's about to stop, he removes it. Amrav Papa. That's not allowed. Because there's an Issa D'Rabbanan. Why? Any type of activity where if a person would simply do it on his own, he would be chayav achatas, because it would be considered an Issa min HaTorah. For instance, walking along the street, and even while you're walking, lifting something off the ground. That's called an akira, because you're lifting something off the ground. So that's called an akira. And if you place it down, you're doing hanacha. So Issa min HaTorah. But chaveroi, if you employ this method with your friend, so while he's walking, you take it and put it on him. So it's a joint effort. This malacha is being accomplished by two people. Certainly he's potter. They're both potter. Because Rashi says we apply the rule of shnaim shasua. If two people join together and do a malacha in conjunction with each other, they are potter. Aval asa. But it's asa d'Rabbanan. So since this type of activity, walking along the street, picking something off the ground, if a person himself would do it, he'd be chayv achatas. Because he's doing a malacha, he's lifting something off the ground, even if he's walking. But since he's lifting it from a stationary state, he's lifting it off the ground and walking with it and then placing it back down, he's doing a malacha min HaTorah. So even if he does it to his friend, when his friend is walking, his friend is an active, and he places it on his friend, so it's happening as a joint effort. He's doing the akira, so to speak, and his friend is carrying it along. So it's happening through two people. It's shnaim she'asua, and it is pata. It's not a malacha min HaTorah, but it's asa d'Rabbanan. So you can't use your friend. You can't employ this method with your friend. However, an animal is different. Whenever you have a situation where if two people do it together, it's pata min HaTorah, but it's asa d'Rabbanan. If it's employed with an animal, if one does it in conjunction with an animal, with his donkey, it's mutal chatchila, because joining forces with an animal to do a malacha involves no issa whatsoever. So therefore, better place the pouch on the animal, as we said, in motion, put it on him while he's in motion, remove it while he's in motion, in which case the malacha, so to speak, is happening as a joint effort between the person and animal, in which case there's no issa midrabanan whatsoever. So in summary, we learned that if one is traveling, he sees Shabbos is about to begin, what does he do with his money pouch? What does he do with his valuables? So we have a hierarchy. The first option is give it to the Nachri. Second option, place it on the Chamar. As we just described, he does it while it's in motion. Third option is give it to a Shaita. Then we have a Cherish and a Katan. What if we're faced with the choice of Cherish and Katan? According to Rabbi Lezer, certainly give it to the Katan because the Cherish perhaps is considered to be a Bar Das and a Bar Mitzvah. According to Rabbanan, we're not sure. We have two approaches. Give it to the Cherish or give it to the Katan. And finally, the Gemara says, if none of the above are applicable, you yourself will carry it less than 4 amos. Now it's interesting that the Chachamim would allow a Isser Rabbanan of giving something to a guy and having him do it for you. They suspended that Isser for the sake of conserving his property. Now they did not allow a Shnaim Shirasua. The Gemara says you can't do a malacha in conjunction with your friend because that's considered to be doing a malacha together, which is an Isser Rabbanan. Why is this different? And it appears that this Isser Rabbanan was different and did not suspend this Isser even in face of losing property. The reason seems to be because it's different than merely instructing a guy where there's no Isser and Torah involved whatsoever. The whole thing begins and ends with an Isser Rabbanan, as opposed to doing a malacha through two people. There is a malacha midharaisa being completed here, but it's done as a partnership between two people. This is a more severe act. This resembles more closely an Isser and Torah, and therefore this they did not allow even in these circumstances. Continues the Gemara. Amar of Ada bar Ava. We have another scenario where a person is stuck with his package on Shabbos. A person finds himself carrying his load and it's already Shabbos. So he should just run and run until he reaches home. So in which case there's no malacha because as long as he doesn't stop to rest, there's no akira, there's no hanacha, he's just continuously in motion until he gets home. Daf karutz. This is only allowed if he runs. Aval kali, if he walks leisurely light, you don't allow him to do this. Why? My timer. Why? Kivan de lesle akira, since he's not doing something abnormal. He's merely walking in an ordinary manner. Perhaps he won't pay attention. Since he's doing something just ordinarily, he's walking and he's not doing something unusual, perhaps he'll forget what's happening and he'll come to stop and start again and do akira v'anocha. So we require him to run, which is a demonstration of something unusual taking place, in which case he'll keep in mind what's happening, he won't come to stop. Says what happens when he gets home? Saif, ultimately, kimatal base when he gets to his house. It's inevitable that he's going to stop a bit. He's going to be bringing in. So either it means that he's going to stop when he gets to his door, or it means that, at least when he places the item down in his home, he's actually completing the transfer. So how is he going to get around that concern? Says he simply tosses it off in an indirect way, in which case there's no Isser. The Chum allow this in a situation of hefsid, where a person is incurring financial loss. They allow him to transport in this manner. So he runs until he gets home and tosses it off, in which case there was no outright malacha done. If a person leads his animal who's carrying a load on Shabbos, we know that's asr. Now, what are the consequences here? Do we treat this like an ordinary malacha? In which case a person will be chayv echatas if he does it b'shoigig inadvertently, or if he does it maliciously, b'mezit, he gets skila. Or do we say, no, this is a lower form isser? So this is like an ordinary malacha b'shagi. He brings a chatas b'mezid, he gets skill. My time or why? Amar Rav the Makra, the pasuk says, Lo yisasa kol malacha ato behemtecha. The pasuk warns us against doing a malacha with your behema. What type of malacha is done in conjunction with one's behema? Leading the animal who's carrying a load. And the Gemara and the pasuk compares the two things. Behemto idumi didei. Doing a malacha with his behema is comparable to ata, to your own personal malacha. Mahu b'shogeg chayav chatos. Just as he himself, when he does a malacha, b'shogeg, unknowingly he brings a chatos. B'mezid, if he does it intentionally, chayav skila. Af behemtei, likewise, if he does this malacha through his behema, behemtei nami, b'shogeg chayav chatos, b'mezid chayav skila. So according to Rabbi Chama, we regard it as though it's his own personal ma'aseh, as though he's turning on the light on Shabbos, because he's doing a malacha with his behema. I have two challenges to this opinion. Chada, number one, how can you say it's chayv achatas? The pasuk says, Torah achas yelachem. You will have one Torah, one category. Lo'oise b'shgoga, to a person who does not very b'shagi, but nefesh hashatas b'yodroma, does b'mezid. So this is a pasuk by Avodah Zarah, and the Gemara learns from here, Torah achas, that the whole Torah is connected to Avodah Zarah. We went to apply the same formula, just as we find by Avodah Zarah, where b'mezid is a skila, b'shagi is chatas, and b'mezid, if there's no Edom, he gets kares. So likewise, the other averis in the Torah, where b'mezid is a kares, b'shagi is a kar machatas. Hukshukala Torah kula Avodah Zarah. The whole Torah is connected to Avodah Zarah. Ma Avodah Zarah, just as Avodah Zarah, the avad ma'aseh b'gufay. It is a person who did a ma'aseh physically, directly with him, his own body. It's his own personal ma'aseh. And therefore, he brings a chatas if he does it inadvertently. Ha'chanami here as well, regarding the whole Torah. We require that it conforms to that formula ad ovid ma'aseh b'gufay. He only brings a chatas if he does the ma'aseh actually himself. But this case of mechamer is different, because he's doing it through his animal. It doesn't fit this criteria. V'oid. Additionally, how can you say that there's a skila, if a person is mechamer b'mezid? Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, amachalas ha-Shabbos. If a person desecrates Shabbos, b'dover, by doing something shechayoven al shigigos chatas, with something where, if it's done b'shogeg, there's a chatas, v'al is skila, when it's done b'mezid, there's skila. So the fact that the Mishnah says that it's specifically something which is a type of chilul Shabbos, which results in a chatas and a skila, apparently, the Mishnah is implying there's something which doesn't fit that description. Mechlal, apparently, there's another type of chilul Shabbos. There ain't chayoven al shigigos chatas. There's no chatas for doing it b'shogeg, v'loi al zdoin skila. Nor is there a skila on doing it b'mezid. What is this referring to? Lav the mechamer. Apparently, this is referring to the lava mechamer, that leading an animal with a package, with a load, although it's chilul Shabbos, one can't do it, but it's not so severe like the other malachas. There's no chatas, there's no skill. Says more no, loy, tchumen. It's referring to the isra of leaving one's boundaries on Shabbos. I'll leave the Rekiva. According to Rekiva holds that in a Torah one can't walk past the tchum. Nevertheless, there's no chatas and there's no skila. But certainly, mechamer is considered like the other malachas, which incurs skila and chatas. Or v'havara. It's referring to lighting a fire. I leave the Rabbi Yossi, according to Rabbi Yossi, who maintains that lighting a fire in Shabbos is not equated with the other malachas. It only involves a lav. So the mission there, which implies that there are other types of chilul Shabbos, which are not in the category of chatas and skila, is referring to tchumen or havar, but not mechamer. Says the more Rav Zvid Masni Hachi. Rav Zvid had a different version in Rami Bar Chama's Shita. Amar Rami Bar Chama, hamachamer acha behem b'Shabbos. If one leads a behemoth who's carrying a load on Shabbos, b'shogeg ein chayav chatas. If he does it inadvertently, there's no chatas, because we learn from Avodah Zarah it needs to be a ma'aseh, as opposed to this case, it's not his ma'aseh, it's the animal's doing. However, b'mezid chayav skila, if he does it intentionally, he brings a skila, he's chayav skila, because we learned earlier, don't do a malacha, you and your behema. And we connect the malacha that you do through the behema to the malacha that a person himself does, just as the malacha that he personally does brings a skila. Likewise, the malacha doing through the behema results in skila. So in summary, we have three shittas regarding mechamer. Going to the first version of Ram Bar Chama, it's equated to the other malachas, b'shogeg, dezechi, chatas, b'mezid. This skila, because according to Ram Bar Chama, we look at it as though it's his own personal malacha. He's using his animal to accomplish his malacha. According to Rava, he's pater from chatas, pater from mezid. According to Rava, apparently, we regard it as the animal's act, not his act. The second version of Ram Bar Chama maintained, it depends. B'shogeg, the person is pater from chatas. B'mezid, the person who's leading the animal is chayav skila. And it appears that the svara, the reason would be that by a shogeg, where there's no premeditation, there's no intent, this liability is simply on account of the actual act that was done. Now, who did the ma'aseh here? It was the animal. So the one leading it is pater. As opposed to be mezid, where The liability is as a result of the premeditation, of the intent, of the planning, of the arranging. In this case, he's arranging that the animal should do this malacha. So it's as though he is doing the malacha in conjunction with his animal, and he's chayiv skila. Okay, time for a brief review of today's daf. The Gemara began by telling us, how do we truly determine the madrega, the status of a person, of whether he's a ben olam haba? Just take a look at what happens during the person's levaya. The Gemara says, well, take a look at what the people are saying. We're going to follow this man. This is the true way to live. Another option is, what are his teachers saying? Are they pleased with his actions, what they hear, what they see about him? The Gemara told us one is meant to be constantly on guard, prepares neshama, keep it clean. We never know when the moment will come. The Mishnah told us if one is carrying his money and Shabbos is around the corner, we have many options for him. Give it to a nachri, place it on the donkey, give it to a shoita, a cherish or a katan, and finally, if no other options are available, carry it less than 4 amos at a time. If one finds himself carrying a load on Shabbos, run home and toss it down. And we have 3 approaches to the malacha of mechamer.